Hi everybody, this is Burke Lyle and welcome to this edition. We are talking Major League Baseball for the first time, really since I'm trying to think back in mid-November actually it's been about 2 months now. It's been a while since I've talked Major League Baseball. So again, spring training, pitchers and catchers are going to report really for the next week to 10 days, and then spring training games will kick off kind of in late February. And we are exactly 50 days away from opening day. But major news broke last night. Mookie Betts will be a Los Angeles Dodger in 2020. So, what I've done is a trade. It's about 6 o'clock right now on the East Coast, about 3:30 Pacific time. The trade broke last night. Approximately, I can't remember the exact time, maybe right around 9 o'clock, something like that. It was last night, and the news broke, and I heard a report before it happened, Dodgers and Red Sox getting close to a trade. And you know, with Mookie Betts, you hear these rumors all the time. I just didn't read that in depth to them again. I didn't read that in depth to the trade rumors. I just heard rumors, Mookie Betts could be traded. I heard it pretty much all offseason. I thought, nah, it's not going to happen. I think it's just rumors. We heard a lot of rumors, Francisco Lindor is going to get traded, right? That has not happened. And the question is, will it happen? That's a whole other discussion. But with Betts, I did not think it was going to happen. I thought they were just rumors, especially as we got closer and closer to the season. And now, just approximately 72 hours after the Super Bowl, and really when the trade took place, approximately less than 48 hours after the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, baseball is back in the headlines as having one of the biggest stories in sports. Since remember, about 3 weeks ago, the news broke with the Astros and A.J. Hinch, which then snowballed onto the Red Sox of Alex Cora, and then eventually spread onto the Mets of Beltran. So in a span of 3 days, approximately 72 hours, 3 managers, I thought Beltran, least deserving, lost their jobs as managers. So that was kind of the biggest story in baseball for a while. Since obviously a couple months ago, we had the winter meetings. And then about a week later, we had the Hall of Fame voting. Derek Jeter, almost unanimous, 1 vote short. Followed by Larry Walker, which for Jeter, that was really the first player that I truly enjoy watching play and remember his prime very well. Be elected into the Hall of Fame. So congratulations to Derek Jeter and Larry Walker on that. So now, whole nother story. Fast forward to now. And Mookie Betts is a Dodger. And I read various outlets. I read The Athletic, really kind of read from the Red Sox point of view and the Dodgers, and nationally. Ken Rosenthal, I read MLB.com. Richard Justice wrote a great article on kind of how this affects the league, which it really does affect a lot of different teams in each league, particularly. Obviously, the Red Sox and Dodgers are influenced the most, but you think about other teams that are affected, right? Think about teams like the Nationals and Braves, Cardinals, who, again, teams like that, all of a sudden their competition is harder. It will be harder for them to potentially win the National League pennant this year. Or maybe other teams, like the Red Sox, obviously getting worse. So this really affects a lot. It's really a dramatic trade, since obviously Mookie Betts, who won an MVP just 2 years ago, and I honestly thought, in terms of re-signing, like how much money he was going to get, and was he going to re-sign with the Red Sox, I didn't really think too much about him. I knew he was going to be a free agent. I knew it would be worth $27 million. That's how much money that he got in arbitration. So those are the factors there. So in terms of details of who is traded, so let me go over that. So the Red Sox obviously traded Mookie Betts, and here's another name in the trade. They traded David Price as well. So Mookie Betts and David Price go to the Dodgers. The Red Sox, and this is a 3-way trade, by the way. The Twins are involved as well. So the Red Sox get Alex Verdugo, who again showed promise, could be a good hitting outfielder. Young, 23 years old, goes to Boston, so could be trying to take the place of Mookie Betts, someone that the Dodgers no longer need. And then it's Brusdar Gratterall, who is a pitching prospect for the Twins. Saw him pitch in October some last year. I think he's barely 21, throws very hard, has a lot of potential. Will now go to the Red Sox. Question is, can he be a starter in the long run, or does he have to move to the bullpen? And then the Twins get Kenta Maeda, who was a Dodgers, usually their fourth starter last year. Back and forth between starting and bullpen, usually by the playoffs. Is really a long reliever type pitcher. So this is a three-way trade, obviously, who benefits the most. Since the Dodgers, by getting David Price, basically the Red Sox said, hey, if you want Betts, you're going to have to take the Price contract. And the Dodgers were like, okay, we'll take it. But it turns out, I've heard reports from pretty much every outlet I've read, ESPN, The Athletic, MLB.com, that the Dodgers and Red Sox are basically splitting the contract. I think the Dodgers are paying a little bit more than half of it. But obviously for the Red Sox, this will free up, since both of them 27 and 32. So they're not paying Betts anymore. And they, well, obviously, I don't think he would resign with the Red Sox this offseason if he's a free agent. I just don't think that's going to happen, especially after leaving Boston now. And then with Price, the Red Sox are basically freed of $100 million. Freed of $100 million. Sorry about that. Some background noise distracting me. They're basically freed of $100 million over the next 3 seasons, basically. Very close to that. And then the Red Sox get 2 young players. Verdugo is shown at the big league level, and Gratterall has long-term potential. So the Red Sox get kind of the most young talent, and the Twins get a starting pitcher that will help them. That's probably more used to them than, say, the Dodgers. And then to free up room for Betts to play every day, the Dodgers also traded Jock Peterson and Ross Stripling to the Angels for Luis Rengifo, who was only 22 years old and played a fair amount with the Angels last year and played pretty well last year. So that's kind of the stories that happened there. And I read an article from Keith Law in The Athletic. I read a lot of stories, but I wanted to point out to Keith Law the most, who, again, I listened to a lot, was a guest on the Buster Only podcast a lot over the years. So I've heard Keith Law a lot over the years, and now at The Athletic. So interesting facts. Only Mike Trout has a higher WAR since 2015 than Mookie Betts, which I'm not surprised to hear it, since Betts won 1 MVP and was an MVP finalist in 2016, along with 17 and 19, being 2 other good years, more so in 19. So I'm not surprised to that. So obviously second best player in terms of, if you want to say, analytics like WAR, wins above replacement in the last 5 years. So David Price, the Dodgers, and they can handle this, they're a big market team. David Price has not reached 200 innings since 2016, since I think in 17 had that elbow problem, last year had kind of the hand and wrist problem, and in 18 started but just didn't go as into deep in games as he used to. So really it's been really since his first year on the Red Sox that was really a full-time 200 inning workhorse type starter. And at this point now, I don't think you see this anymore. And obviously, the Dodgers are paying about half of it. So, again, in effects around Major League Baseball. Okay, so let's go from the Dodgers standpoint first. This is a 106-win team, the Dodgers. Obviously, they lost to the World Series champion Washington Nationals in the first round, right? So they won 106 games, and basically the Nationals came from behind in Game 5 and basically stole the series from them. Right? So they won 106 games. And obviously they're heavy favorites to win the National League West. I mean, I think who's going to come in second is Arizona, who, again, Braun and Madison Bumgarner, good for them, and Cole Calhoun, who I think hit over 30 home runs last year with the Angels. So, again, I think the D-backs could very well be a wild card contender, but that's a whole other story. There's a difference between being a wild card contender and being World Series favorites, which that move getting Mookie Betts makes you World Series favorites. Since again, they just, you know what, the Nationals just outplayed them. The Nationals just found a way to beat them. Yes, the Dodgers were the better team. You think about in that series and games that the Dodgers won. I think they won something like 10-4 and 6-0, right? So they outscored them 16-4 in games that they won. Okay, and then obviously Game 5 was very close too. So the Dodgers were the better team than the Nationals were. And they're clearly the best team in the National League all year long. I mean, I can't think of any point in time where you could say, I wonder if the Braves are better, I wonder if the Phillies are better, I wonder if the Cardinals, Cubs, whoever. There was never that point in time. The Dodgers were by far and away the best team in the National League by about 10 games. Right, so the question is, how does it affect the rest of the league? Well, I think for the Nationals, if you want to go to Washington, D.C., the Dodgers add Mookie Betts, so you have 2 MVPs, Bellinger, 19 National League MVP, and Betts, 2018 American League MVP, in your lineups right there, while the Nationals lose Anthony Rendon, an MVP finalist, to the Angels, who is obviously out of their league now. So now all of a sudden, the Nationals, are they better or worse? I mean, who knows? Are they going to be 19-31 again? No. Or are they going to play so well that they're going to win 93 games? Maybe not. Maybe I'd say they win around 90. And maybe they can find a way to win the division. Maybe they're a little better. Maybe they win 93 again. Who knows? But now the Dodgers lineup is better. And now the Nationals lineup is obviously worse since there is no Rendon. And with the Nationals talking about their lineup, sure you have Juan Soto, but first base is kind of platoon. Ryan Zimmerman, Eric Dames, and then Howie Kendrick, very good, but is a limited player, sort of like, if you had sixth man in basketball, that's kind of Kendrick's role, he's not going to start, but when he's playing, his offense is really good. Those are limited at bats, and then obviously third base as Drew Cabrera, Carter Kieboom, Starlin Castro, who they did sign. How well does he perform? You can't replace Anthony Rendon defensively or offensively. Rendon is, at the very least, the second best third baseman in baseball, right? So that's the Nationals lineup, and now you're expecting a lot more out of Victor Robles. And then Adam Eaton's a good hitter, does things productively, but you can't expect him to hit 330 home runs. You can't expect him to be an MVP candidate. So your best hitter is now 21-year-old Juan Soto. Right, who in years past, as a rookie, was in the same lineup as Bryce Harper, right? So a Nationals team where offense, for many years that they're in the playoffs, was a strength for them. I think really, especially the high mark was in 16 and 17, really. I think 17 was their peak when it came to offense. Right, so now all of a sudden, no more Harper, no more Rendon. Obviously, Zimmerman is no longer, you can expect him to have a big offensive season. Is basically going to get limited at bats, right? So that's the Nationals lineup right there. That's the team that just won the World Series and beat the Dodgers last year. They're obviously worse, definitely offensively, no question about that. Starting pitching against the Dodgers, I mean, the Nationals are better, especially at the front end. I mean, Scherzer and Strasburg are better than Walker Buehler. If you put all three of them at their very best, Scherzer and Strasburg are better than Walker Buehler. And Buehler's a really good pitcher. He's probably going to be you could pencil him as, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a Cy Young finalist. Right, and obviously had Clayton Kershaw and David Price, say, 5 years ago in that same rotation. That would be one of the great rotations maybe of all time. Just those two together, you'd probably have, it would be like Verlander and Cole right now, was last year. But that's different. So obviously, the Dodgers are heavy favorites to win the West. You look around and you see Atlanta, they're fairly similar. I mean, they lost Josh Donaldson, replaced him with Marcell Ozuna. I think Ozuna, if he's healthy for a full season, is capable of putting up Donaldson-like numbers. 35 home runs, 100 RBIs, as did in Miami in 2017. Will obviously play the outfield, and the question is, how does Austin Riley hit in Atlanta? So the Braves won 97 games last year. Obviously, they're not as good as the Dodgers. They weren't as good last year. I don't think they'll be as good as them this year. And then you had the Cardinals, who went to the LCS, who then proceeded to lose Ozuna to the Braves, the team that they beat in the playoffs. So does that make the Braves better and the Cardinals worse? Who knows? So obviously, you go around all the way around the West. You go around all through that playoff field. The Dodgers, on paper, without a doubt, are the best team in the National League, and I don't think it's anywhere close. But that's why they'll play the games next year. In terms of Boston, who, it's hard to believe that just about not much more than 15 months ago, so about a year and a quarter ago, so not much more over a year, the Red Sox won 108 games and won the World Series. And obviously, as I mentioned at the top earlier in this episode, that obviously with Alex Cora being connected to Houston and the Red Sox themselves involved in some sort of sign stealing in 2018, Alex Cora is now out as your manager, and that has not been announced as of this moment. And then you trade Mookie Betts, who is clearly your best player. And then you trade David Price, who is again, when they won the World Series, why they won, it was David Price, who, again, at the time, I talked at length about David Price's performance in the playoffs. Basically, that reputation of never won a playoff game until his days prior to that World Series run. David Price just took over, and that's why the Red Sox won the World Series. And I think should have been World Series MVP, at least co-World Series MVP, but that debate's for another time. So again, Price was very valuable to the Red Sox that October. Now, all of a sudden, I think he had some moments where he just felt like he couldn't handle Boston. I think Fenway Park, going now to Dodger Stadium, one of the best pitchers' parks in the league. That may help David Price a lot. So obviously you take out David Price and especially Mookie Betts more than anything. The Red Sox, who again last year had a disappointing year, I think their offense was really good. They just didn't have starting pitching, just too many injuries to their pitching rotation. They're all of a sudden worse when you looked at the up-and-coming Rays. I mean, think about it. The Rays, number one, were a much better team than the Red Sox were last year. And two, their farm system is so much better than the Red Sox. The Red Sox don't really have a farm system at all. So the Rays could be up and coming. The Blue Jays could be up and coming too, especially after signing Hyun-Jin Ryu, former Dodger. Right? So the Blue Jays could have a better future. So with that worst case scenario, I think the best case scenario is the Yankees are disappointing. The Red Sox are way better than everybody expected. The Red Sox find a way to win the East some way, somehow. Or at the very least, they're still worse than the Yankees, but they get a wild card spot. Worst case, I think they finish in fourth, right? So the Red Sox now are certainly a lot worse. They don't even have a manager. So they've had quite a decline in their franchise, and they traded away their best player since maybe that showed they weren't going to re-sign him anyways. Since of Mookie Betts, I think they offered him about $200 million. I think after the 2017 season when Betts was a little bit down, but clearly a special player. Said here's $200 million. Said accepted. He said no, I'm worth more than that. So it'll be interesting to see how much Mookie Betts gets if he performs at the MVP level or close to it, like he did the last 2 years. 3 out of the last 4, then Betts could get $300 million. I mean, who knows how much money Betts is getting this offseason, but I think we'll take it all the way to free agency. The question is, do the Dodgers re-sign him? That's interesting to see. But the factor is, going back to the Boston side of things, is the Red Sox got a lot worse. they are worse now than what they were, say, even just a few days ago, and certainly a month ago, and certainly a year ago. Since you have those factors in, and then JD Martinez has a potential opt-out. The question is, does JD Martinez, if matches his 2018 season, choose to leave potentially as well? So the Red Sox, who again thought they could really have a lot going well for them, won 108 games in the World Series. Now all of a sudden, you're wondering, how good are they going to be this year? What is their future over the next few years, since things look a lot worse than, as I just said, a year ago, right? So the Red Sox are. So the question is, I think this makes the Yankees already AL East favorites, and then you talk about the Yankees taking Garrett Cole away from the Astros, the team that beat them. The Astros beating the Yankees in the ALCS. Now that gives maybe the Yankees the advantage that they didn't have, and the Astros something worse. Since obviously the Astros do not have Garrett Cole any longer. Garrett Cole is gone now. And sure, the Astros, I think, are still fit, despite not having A.J. Hinch, and despite a completely new front office, and now having Dusty Baker as their manager happened about a week ago, the hiring. They are still favorites to win the West, I would think. I don't think the A's, I mean, again, what if their win total drops to 95 and the A's win 97 again? Okay, maybe they don't win the West, but still, I still think they're favorites to win the West, since again the A's, based on their team, their record was a lot more talented than what the team might have looked like on paper, right? And then the Seattle Mariners are not ready yet. They could be in a few years. That could be something to keep an eye out on over the next couple of years. And then how good are the Angels? We don't know. I think they're better. I think they really are trying hard to win right now. Right, then there's those factors, and then there's Texas, who, adding Corey Kluber, taking them away from the Indians, a team that won 93 games last year, who it appears to be doing kind of in a sellish mode right now. So those are those questions. So the Red Sox declining, taking Betts out of their league, and making potentially Red Sox competition easier. So right now, the question is, let's go around the league quickly, and this is not a baseball preview show, but let's go around just rapid fire. I'm going to go around and say who are the current division favorites right now. So National League East. Let's do the National League first. You know, that's tricky. You could say the Braves won 97. You could say the Phillies, who brought in Zach Wheeler. The Nationals obviously won the World Series. And they could be a similar type team. And then the Mets, who again are always in that same discussion. So the question is, who is the National League East favorite? You know, that's hard. I don't know who's going to win. If I had to say right now, I'm going to say the Phillies. Central, that's tricky too. You had the Cardinals last year. You think about what the Reds are doing. They add Moustakas and Nicholas Castellanos, in addition to having a full season of Trevor Bauer. And if he can do what he did in 2018, if he can be good more often than bad, can really be consistently very good to great, you could potentially have the Reds factored in. Or maybe the Cardinals decline a little bit. I'm going to say, probably right now, I'm going to say the Cardinals based on last year. I don't know where the Cubs are going. So Cardinals, West, easy. Dodgers, AL East. Yankees, that's not a question. The Red Sox, who were their biggest competitors, got worse than the Rays. They could be very good. But the Yankees are clear favorites after you win 103 games and you added Garrett Cole, so this team only gets better. AL Central, probably still the Twins, since the Indians may have just gotten worse again. I mean, where are the Indians going? And then White Sox could be up and coming. They could be a wild card contender this year, considering their off season. I think they've gotten better. And then in the AL West, still the Astros. I think they're still a world. Look, I still think they're World Series contenders. They lost Garrett Cole, but they're still good. So again, those are the factors there. So obviously, really think the Betts signing more than anything gives the Yankees higher odds to win the American League East, and in addition to adding Cole, the Astros part of things now gets worse. And then now in the American League Central, what do you see? So those are kind of all the things that happen in the Betts deal. And as I close out, I have just one last thing to say. Current spring training World Series pick, I'm going to say Dodgers versus Yankees, based on the way everything is on paper. Well, that is everything. I thought it was kind of interesting to talk about kind of the Betts factor, how it now makes the Dodgers, I'm going to say, World Series favorites, and how the Red Sox getting worse makes the Yankees better, and potentially other teams in that wild card hunt better. Say the White Sox, the A's, the Rays, obviously. So it'll be interesting to see how this all works out and how this works. But just the big story I want to talk about, and that's everything when I come back on again. I don't know for sure. I mean, I think it'll be more of a kind of a day-by-day basis. I don't have anything scheduled. But if some big stories start to break out, I will try to get to them. So thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.